Hello, listeners, and welcome to a new episode of Business Compact, the podcast for founders, seasoned business owners, or everybody else who is interested in learning about the world of international business. In each episode, we will explore topics related to the creation, growth, and globalization of businesses, from founding challenges to international growth opportunities. Our guests will share their insights, personal opinions, and lessons learned along the way, inspiring you to take a closer look at each individual discussed topic. My name is Tobias Kerkhoff, and I'm the General Manager for Internationalization at Wannabe International Business and your host for this episode. I hope you enjoy the upcoming conversation, and as always, if you have any comments, need support for your international business, or want to be on this podcast as a guest too, you're welcome to contact me under my email shown at the beginning of this episode. Finally, of course, feel free to subscribe to this podcast and our newsletter. Joining us on today's podcast is Gaurav Sharma, Senior Vice President of Tecnova Global, a leading India entry consulting company. Over the last 40 years, Tecnova Global has given advice to more than 2 clients, but I don't want to reveal too much right now. The company. So welcome, Gaurav. I really appreciate you making time for this episode of Business Compact.
Thank you, Tobias. Thank you for having me on the podcast. It's a pleasure to be here. Good to talk to you.
Then let's start right away. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and Tecnova Global.
So, about myself, very quickly about me, I'm working, as you rightly said in the beginning, I'm working as a Senior Vice President in the company Tecnova. I'm associated with the company for about 14 years now. In terms of my background, my education, I'm an MBA and I have overall about 22 years experience, mostly in business consulting. I've been consulting companies from Europe and America in industries like industrial, B2B, healthcare, automotive, consumer, etc. So before Tecnova, I was associated with companies like iGate and Citibank, but that was the shortest stint. Most of my work experience has been with Tecnova. In terms of personal front, I'm married. I have two boys, 13 and 8. About Tecnova, just to give you a very quick outline of who we are and what we do. We are a India entry consulting company. That's where we specialize on. And the company started in 1984. So we are about 40 years old. Our headquarters is in Gurgaon, which is very close to New Delhi. And we have an office in Dubai. We have a small office in Berlin, and then an office in Omaha and Nebraska. Altogether, about 110 people. Mostly we are located in Gurgaon, which is our head office, as I mentioned. Since we started, for over 40 years, we have been into entry consulting. We specialized on India entry, but we are also assisting companies in regions like Southeast Asia and Middle East. In terms of service offerings, we position ourselves as an end-to-end support consulting company. So we are not just a research company, but we have worked with clients right from research phase to the implementation phase and then the ongoing advice, which means that we have 3 phases of the services. The phase 1, we call it as planning, which is everything to do about market investigation and market planning. This may include a market survey or a business plan or a strategy recommendation. Then we go to the phase 2, which is, we call it as implementation, where we can help companies to establish the business activities. This phase has 1 to establish the activities for selling in India, which is either a factory setup or looking at potential acquisitions or joint ventures, or it could simply be identifying potential distributors or partners. That's for the selling. Within implementation phase, we also have support services on sourcing. So companies who are looking to develop supply chain from India, we have a full team for identification of suppliers to finalizing the suppliers from India. So these are the main 2 phases. Once the business sets in, and we also have the phase 3 of our services where we can continue providing ongoing support for the companies who may require support on areas like HR or accounting or bookkeeping or compliance. This is in short what we do. The 3 phases of the services. These are very independent phases, very flexible. So we have been working with companies who are already operating in these markets. Like, for example, somebody already working in India and need to expand or need to change something. And we are working with companies who are not yet doing anything in India and may like to start from a whiteboard. So basically the services are highly tailor-made and very We have assisted more than 1,400 international companies. Mostly our clients come from Europe and United States of America. We deal with a wide variety of sectors, which goes from industrial B2B, within industrial B2B, anything which is like either it is packaging or construction or energy or automotive is a part of B2B. And then we have verticals on consumer retail and pharma health, which consist of people with technical skills, so mostly are engineers, and then they go up to people coming from background of consumer retail or online.
Could you briefly outline the macroeconomic business environment of India? So, for instance, key sectors, most important imports and exports, inflation rate, GDP, and so on.
When it comes to the macro business environment, the largest sector that India has today, which accounts for over 50% of our GDP, it includes ITES, which is predominantly a very large sector, finance, telecommunications, tourism. We are also having the core industries, which are like mining or construction, which contributes about 25% of the GDP. Another important sector which forms a part of our core growth is agriculture, which employs a significant portion of our population and also contributes around 15% to the GDP. I would say that in terms of the imports, India is a major importer of crude oil, which tops the list to meet our energy needs. We also import electronics, and then we are also importing, depending on the sector to sector, some machinery and similar components. When it comes to the exports, we export our gems and jewelries. We are a very large exporter of pharmaceuticals also. I mean, there have been FDA-approved pharmaceutical plants, which are located in mostly in the southern part of India. So this is one of the big sector for exports. We are a very big exporter of textiles as well, which is for ready-made garments or yarn, and then software services, which is well known. Some of the cities like Bangalore in India, they are known as the IT capital of not only just India, but also of the world. I would say these are 4 or 5 important sectors for exports. When you look at some of the economic indicators, India is a country which is one of the fastest growing, of course, and have been consistently maintaining, I would say, an average of 6 to 7% GDP rate growth in the recent past few years. We also have been having a high inflation rate because we have a high GDP, which ranges between 4 to 6%. The central bank has given a target to keep this rate as about 4% or bring it down. We also have substantial foreign exchange reserves, which is to provide some stability to the currency and to the economy overall. And the government is consistently working to reduce the fiscal deficit of the country. Some of the other factors, India has a very large and young population, which adds a lot of factors to the growth of the country in the coming years. We have, I think, a lot of now stabilized and reformative kind of government policies, which have improved the business environment, and they've been attracting investment. So the FDI in India, if you look at a longer period, which is like, let's say 10 years or 5 years, there has been a huge growth on the foreign direct investments in India, which is basically progressive and positive government policies. Infrastructure development is also a very important factor when it comes to our macroeconomic growth. We have not been just building the expressways or the highways, but there has been a lot of focus by the government to improve logistics, the business community. We are building dedicated freight corridors. We are building dedicated expressways for the goods movement. Overall, I would say that our macroeconomic environment presents both opportunities, but also there are challenges, I would say, because of being a large market, a young economy. We just got liberalized in 91. And then after that, we were more on coalition governments, due to which some of the reforms may not have been implemented for the last 10 years, which has come with a majority of government, a progressive government, and with the factors that I just explained. I think we are poised to grow and or at least continue the similar rate that we are growing at about 6-7%. Some of the bottlenecks, which could be again infrastructure, I mean, a lot more has to be done, or a bureaucratic hurdles, which basically to remove, maybe even if it is more red tapeism or some bureaucratic complexities which still exist, because we have multiple states here. But there has been policies and government intervention to reduce all that. So I think we are well poised for the sustained growth in the coming.
You've already mentioned some of these challenges right now. What are the biggest challenges besides from infrastructure, from necessary reforms, but also opportunities for companies doing business in India?
So, Toby, some of the challenges I mentioned, and the good thing is that there has been government plans, and the government is conscious of the fact that if we need to grow at that rate, and if we have to maintain this growth, we need to address those challenges. So, besides the one that I already mentioned, I would say one of the challenges also about regulatory complexity, because we have about different states in India, and these different states may also have the state policies which are different from state to state. So, which basically makes sometimes the landscape complex and bureaucratic. Navigating from these complexities would be essential, and making some of these regulations would be one challenge that the government will have to look on. Infrastructure bottlenecks, I think I have already covered, because we did not have flawless kind of infrastructure when it comes to transportation or logistics, or even the power supply. Power supply, for example, is one area a lot of work has been done. Some of the states like Gujarat and all, they are also power surplus now. There used to be the times where there has to be mandatory power cuts in all the states, or we were like power deficit in most of the states, but which has drastically changed. One I also feel, and many a times, is like the cultural diversity, which is the strength, but as well as the challenge at times, because understanding and adapting to the different cultural nuance is sometimes not be that easy, because we have not the four states. Within the four states, we have different culture, we have different languages, we are a diverse country with even the customs and the business practices across regions. Beside this, I think one of the area which I feel, and this is again coming from the experience that we are assisting companies over last many years, one area is about talent acquisition, which is fine. You have a lot of talent here, you can acquire talent here. One of the challenge companies face is more retention of the talent. You may have heard that there are instances where the middle management or even the senior management sometimes, may move quickly. When I say quickly, I'm talking about 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and they change jobs, which is not the practice you will see generally in Europe. I see that this faces the challenge as because of the large pool of the talent, or because of the high growth in this environment. This could be the reason that they do that, but I see that as a challenge of retention of the talent in the country. We are a large population, we are still a growing population, so the disposable incomes are still rising. I would say one of the challenges is also the price sensitivity. Few sectors where the companies have to think, invest in directly, many need to be conscious about meeting or facing that price sensitivity. Sometimes you need to just work on the products. Sometimes the product is over-engineered for the local markets, and India may not need that. So if some adjustments can be done to that, it helps in basically dealing with that price sensitivity, which is a challenge, but of course can be addressed. So I think beside the ones I already listed, these are the 4, 5 additional which comes to my mind. When it comes to the opportunities, they're ample. We are one of the largest population now in the world, which means that this is a high domestic market or domestic consumption. That's what has been one of the key factors of India over the last many years, because it is not just the market for exports, but a market for local consumption. We have also a large and growing market where disposable incomes are rising, which means that there's rapidly growing consumer market with a growing middle class. This basically presents a significant business opportunity across the various sectors. Government initiatives, I said there has been work on cutting down on bureaucratic complexities, red tapeism. There have also been a lot of initiatives which the government has taken, as you may have heard, like Make in India or Digital India, to attract investments and to basically foster innovation. I would say that this is one of the biggest opportunity that through these different initiatives the government has created. There is also a digital transformation in India. We have increased penetration when it comes to smartphone adoptions and usage, which opens up different avenues, which makes the doing of business easier, which makes the transactions easier and engaging with the customer. India also gives an opportunity in skilled workforce. So across India, most of the people are technically qualified. And from the language point of view, also there's no constraint because most of the people, they speak English. This was a big opportunity and provides a competitive advantage for any businesses who are seeking for getting skilled talent and then nurturing for the innovation. Besides that, one of the important opportunities that India presents is very strategic location. It's like gateway to the other emerging markets in Asia. If you look at Southeast Asia or Middle East, so I think the location presents a good opportunity for any businesses who are looking to expand their reach. Then for
As you already mentioned, 2 years ago, India overtook China as the country with the largest population in the world. So it's a very diverse country. What are some intercultural no-goes when it comes to business?
this is a good question. I'm glad that you've spoken here. There are definitely some intercultural no-goals which needs to be maintained to foster better professional relationships and to avoid offending any potential partners or companies there. Some of them I feel is not to ignore the hierarchy. I mean, I know that companies come sometimes, international companies, they're very flat organization. We practice it here too much. I mean, also, but if you look at India's business culture, they also place a strong emphasis on hierarchy and respect for seniority. This is one of the things to keep in mind because in this structure of bypassing the senior management or the key people can sometimes be disrespectful and can harm the business relations. Then not to disregard any religious or cultural sensitivities. India is home to various religions and different cultural practices. So companies who have come here or people investing here from outside, they should keep that in mind. This could be small things like, for example, giving holidays on a particular region, in a particular region also. So if we are based in South, there would be, let's say, 5 or 6 festivals, which are very local, which is very regional there. And you will see here the companies give a holiday in that, whereas in North, there is no holiday like that. So it's not pan-India. There could be in certain regions. So I think this is mindful of that and will be flexible. Another small thing is, but again, for example, dietary restrictions at times, there are certain food which is not commonly eaten in India, and that has also some cultural nuances attached to it. So that is sometimes kept in mind, which is basically about cultural sensitivities. Also, while planning events or meetings, etc. I would say in summary, it is about being thoughtful of the religious and cultural sensitivity. And then I think this relationships is very important, building the strong personal relationships there, which is everywhere in the world. Particularly, I've made this point because we have also been working here a lot on the mergers and acquisitions. So, if you look at that M&A thing, and just giving an example, if you go to any company and if you just ask, okay, like a merchant bankers, do you want to sell your business? The first answer is always no. And then over a period of time or multiple meetings and building that personal relationships, and that is where the families or the owners or the partners open up, and that's how the process starts. Neglecting the relationship building is a hindrance and that shouldn't be done. And in the similar point, we are also not one of the country where you need to rush into something. So business decisions in India often can take some time. They can involve multiple stakeholders. So the rushing on the negotiation process or pushing for a quick decisions can be perceived as aggressive and lead to unfavorable outcomes. And this is also something that we have experienced very closely when we do the merger and acquisitions projects in specific. So these are some of the no-goes or doors which come to my mind. I think I've covered about overlooking the local customs, which is the same point which I covered. So by understanding and respecting these intercultural considerations, investors here or the companies looking to do something in India can basically very well navigate the complexities of doing business there and create strong and lasting relationships with Indian partners or the companies.
According to my professional network, more and more European companies are considering a market entry to India. What are your recent experiences as an advisor for foreign companies?
We've been into entry consulting for 4 decades now. So for 40 years, we've been bringing international companies into India, and we've been in the forefront of assisting several European companies or American companies. Some of the things that we have seen over the last few years is a large interest or a surge in the interest from international companies in sectors like renewable energy, manufacturing, healthcare, of course, is very important. So there has been a total focus we have come across in the last few years. If you look at consumer retail, there are all major companies or all top known brands have come into India because they were the first one to start with when we liberalized in 19. But last few years, we have seen a trend that companies from sectors like energy, healthcare, technology, manufacturing, they're showing great confidence in India's economic potential and market opportunities and looking at. One of the other thing which I noticed is also in exploring an option of sourcing supply chain. I think from the COVID times and otherwise, we have seen that the companies have realized to cut down on over dependence on any one region or any one country. Like there has been a lot of discussion about China plus one as a policy. I've seen that there has been a tremendous interest in the last couple of years with companies who are exploring to look at India in developing a supply chain, which means to find suppliers. And this is across mostly in industrial segment. They're looking for standard components, or they may be looking for specialized castings or metal parts. We have also seen continued interest, especially in EMS sector, which is electronic manufacturing. There has been several incentives and policies which have been laid down by the government of India for encouraging the local setup in electronics. As I said in the beginning, that one of the things that we do decide crude or oil that we import a lot of electronics into India. And there have been a lot of initiatives by the government to basically cut down on that, to find a way where the electronics thing can be locally explored and manufactured. So that's why that there's electronics as a segment also being looked at. Also provides a lot of opportunity actually for the players who are coming there. If you look at Apple, or I'm talking about the cell phones here, if you look at Samsung, Apple, in the smartphones, they're doing a double-digit growth. If you look at comparing to China or other markets, there has been supply chain challenges or even the increasing cost structures, which basically has forced companies to think about alternate manufacturing locations for selling or also for the sourcing needs. And India provides, I think, one of the good platform to explore them.
In Europe, at least in Germany, we have often heard the term de-risking ultimately, which refers to a reduction of trade policy dependency, especially regarding China. How do you assess the role of India in this context? In other words, if India could be or is already an option in order to replace China or move production supply chains to India.
India could be a significant option or can play a role in the global de-risking strategy. So I think I took one of the point of supply chain in China plus one option, particularly if you look at in the context of trade policy or the dependency of China. So my assessment would be based on about the key factors, which is like India as a market offers diverse supply chains. So we can offer a viable alternative for sectors like pharmaceuticals. We have a lot of companies which are already importing the APIs from India. We offer a diverse supply chain for manufacturing and included large in the skilled workforce. And then second is the government initiatives, which create a favorable environment for companies to relocate. When it comes to the local manufacturing, the land acquisition can pose obstacles for foreign investors. But nevertheless, with the growing reforms, with the government intervention, and particularly huge investments in the infrastructure, I think India is a potential key player in global de-risking strategy.
India is one of the 4 founding members of the BRICS. Over the last decade, China has taken on a much more dominant role within this group because of their economic growth. How would you describe the relationship between China and India? In other words, are the two countries still partners or also increasingly competitors in certain sectors?
Mario, the relationship between China and India is multifaceted. It is not easy to understand. It is characterized by cooperation, but also the heavy competition. So if we need to look at India and it needs to be understood on its own terms. We have been marching and we will continue to march to our own. If you look at, we are the only country with the scale to match China, but we are not going to be next China anytime very soon or now. Indeed, the comparisons with China only get in the way of understanding the nature of opportunities in the Indian market. No Indian government would be able to direct the economy in the way China has done. nor will we have ever the control over the allocation of resources, which has been intrinsic to China economics. The policies, the discipline to its economic planning was very different as to what we see in India. But when you look at cooperation, both are part of BRICS, so both countries are founding members. We collaborate on various issues within the frame, which could be like economic development, or it could be trade, or it could be agreement to global governance issues. We also have economic ties. China is India's one of the leading trade partners. We still import a lot of goods and services from China and also the other way around. So I think both of the countries continues to have significant economic interest in each other's market. We have also some of the shared challenges. Common challenges when it comes to climate change or poverty requires basically a mutual cooperation. So we cooperate on those areas. But if you look at competing aspirations for global influence, there is some kind of a geopolitical or competition that we see. Some of the thing is also the economic competition. Both the countries, they compete for resources and markets and investments in various sectors because both of them have large populations, can only be catered by having continued investments and growth. So the economic competition would also be there. At good time could also be the competition for the border disputes, which is also long-standing, and some unresolved border disputes are there, which occasionally can create posturing or border conflicts or tensions. But overall assessment, if you see, while India and China are partners within BRICS and on some global issues, the relationship is increasingly characterized by competition. India's economy will continue to grow. It will become big, may not be as big as China, which is current, about 5-6 times of India's size. So either China's economy would have to crash and India's economy has to grow over 10% for several decades to really catch up, but neither is likely. This cooperation, thing to grow and provide ample opportunities for both countries. When it comes to the future relationships, nobody can say with any certainty, but while competition remains possible, managing this competition would also be crucial to avoid any kind of a conflict or disrupting the stability in Asia. It's important that we also note that this relationship between the two countries would continue to be dynamic, that would be constantly evolving with the potential for both conflict and collaboration at the same time.
Totally makes sense to me. Last question, and I know it's a tricky one. How would you describe the future of India in just one sentence?
The scale of opportunities and growth that India offers at this stage is extraordinary. I mean, I would rather take it in a little bit longer time frame. If it has to be short term, by 2025, 1/5 of the world's working age population will be in. If I take it in the longer context, which is like mid-term, by 2030, with the growth that we see currently, there would be over 900 million internet users in India. The 5 largest cities will have economies of comparable size to middle class or middle income countries today. So I don't see that there is any market over the next 15-20 years which offers more growth opportunities than India. These drivers of the growth are deeply structural. They are also sustainable, and basically the urbanization of the population and the gradual movement of the informal economy will literally be a very triggering factor for this growth.
Unfortunately, we have come to the end of today's episode. Thanks, Gaurav, for this interesting conversation about India. I think we covered a lot of ground. All the best for you and your next projects.
Thank you very much, both of you. Thank you, Tobias. Thank you, Mario.
Thanks to you, Gaurav. Very interesting. Thanks.